Hello and welcome to Deccan Herald. Today we are here to discuss two major political developments. A high-level committee on One Nation, One Election has submitted its report to President Draupadi Murmu, and the second one is the selection of two election commissioners. To discuss this with me, I have Sumit Pande, the National Political Editor, and Shemin Joy, Special Correspondent for Deccan Herald. Sumit, the One Nation, One Election committee has submitted its report. What are your preliminary observations?
Well, we only get very basic information as of now. Yet to go into it's an 18,000 page document they are saying. So I think the devil would lie in the details actually. But to begin with, I think what they're saying is that first of all, they agree with the idea that there should be one nation, one elections. And you're talking about the three tiers of elections in the country. One is the parliamentary elections, the assembly elections, and then the local body elections. Which they suggest now is that they should be held concurrently, and within 100 days of holding the assembly and the parliamentary election, you should also hold the local body elections. Then the other aspect of it is that you have a uniform sort of a universal voter ID card or a record. Currently you have a system wherein the state election commissioners hold the local body elections. You have a separate electoral rolls for that. What they are saying now is that the Election Commission of India should have prepare a central rolls, and which should be used for all the form of elections at every tier. Now the problem here is, and I think that's something which I would want to know, is that one of the primary arguments behind this is that you want to cut on the cost, and multiple elections hamper the administration of the government. Now suppose if there is a situation wherein the government collapses and there is a constitutional crisis, the government falls, what happens then? Are you going to hold the elections again? Are you going to you have a German form of governance wherein unless until there is an alternative person or government in place with the majority, the incumbent government doesn't go. What are the alternatives you are suggesting to that? In a federal polity like India, you cannot have a situation wherein you don't have a government in a state. So I think these are the nitty-gritties that would be very interesting to know exactly what they have suggested.
We were discussing this earlier. If the crisis in Bihar, what we had seen over the past 5 years, were to go when there was a one nation, one election in place, what would happen in Bihar? Would we see multiple elections within 5 years?
No, but in Bihar, we had a situation wherein the chief minister changed, but he had the majority. Okay, so unless until the constitutional crisis comes when you don't have a majority, or the majority has to be tested on the floor of the house, because Supreme Court has said in Bombay case and otherwise also, it is only on the floor of the house that this majority of the government has to be tested. How do you do that? And if the government is not able to prove the majority, then what happens? Will we have no government there? Will we have president rule for how many days? For how many? These are all the things which are prescribed in the current constitution. Which it's very clearly laid down that in so many days you have to ask for the election commission, or you have, if you impose president's rule, then you have to get the parliamentary consent for that. So what are the provisions that they are suggesting as an alternative is something that we ought to know.
Shemin, the government's view, the ruling BJP's view is known on this. How has the opposition reacted to this?
As far as I know, at least 15 parties have written to the Ramnath Kovind-led panel opposing this one nation, one election idea. Their basic objections are about this concept will actually derail the existing federal system in the country. Then they have also opposed, or they have criticized the ideas like it will bring down the amount, the cost involved in it. Or the model code of conduct, the argument of model code of conduct, or the country is always in an election mode. Those kind of things the opposition parties have always opposed. Like said, these are all not a coherent argument. They say the model code of conduct is always for a limited period. They say even during the election time, with the permission of the government, election commission, they can roll out some programs or already existing programs and all. Then on the cost also, they have made some calculations saying that there is not much difference. Actually, you don't gain much money in that way. So 15 parties including Congress, Aam Aadmi Party, Trinamool Congress and several other opposition parties have opposed it.
Are they going to go with an opposition? What do you think? I know it's too early to...
So they will vehemently oppose this. There are so many opposition ruled states. They will try to mobilize with, that's what they are saying, they will try to mobilize people, opposition parties inside and outside parliament. But we have to see how, we will see. I think we will see how this thing comes up when the next government takes up this recommendation.
So before that, do you think for this election, Sumit, would we have a one nation? Would it set in? Maybe some states. No, it would not.
I think you require a constitutional amendments for that.
So
Parliament has to be.
So the one nation, one election recommendations would not have a bearing effect on the upcoming elections.
On the upcoming elections, but I think it's a long-term project on which the government is working. Now, the other aspect is that obviously, when you bring about such changes, there's also obviously a judicial scrutiny also. It has to pass that test also. So it's a process, but I think they've set the ball rolling.
Okay, let's come to the second development that's here. That's the appointment of election commissioners. Shemin, can you give us an update on what's happened and who are the people?
See, today around 12 noon, the selection panel headed by the Prime Minister met here, and one of the members, the Congress leader Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, has told the media that the panel has chosen Sukhbir Singh Sandhu, a retired bureaucrat, as well as another retired bureaucrat Gyanesh Kumar, as the chief election commissioners. Now, the election commissioners. Now this panel will forward the names to the government. The government will process the file and forward it to the president, who will eventually approve the appointments.
No, but is this unanimous, or do you think did
This is not unanimous, because Adhir Ranjan has objected not to the names per se, but to the procedure. I mean, he is claiming that he has told media that he had sought for a short list of candidates, but he was given a long list of 212 bureaucrats last night, and just 10 minutes before the meeting of the panel, he was given a short list of 6. So he is saying that within 10 minutes he is not in a position to assess or analyze the proposed candidates.
Even with the chief election commissioner, the elections can be held technically. Then why was the government seen scrambling at this moment?
One was that there was already a meeting called, because the one vacancy already existed because Mr. Pande had retired, superannuated. Now the developments of the last 1 week, wherein one of the election commissioners, surprisingly put in his papers, and we still do not know what the reasons are, and it's still been speculated. I think in a country like ours, in the big democracy, the very idea or the concept of a multi-member election commission was mooted post-session to make it more democratized, the process of decision making. Although the chief election commissioner is first among the equals, but then it's by a majority vote. So when you conducted general elections, a mammoth exercise of this, the credibility of the elections, the panel who conducts the elections, if it's a multi-panel elections, it adds to the credibility of the entire political process. So I think the government of the day, in its wisdom, would have decided that they would rather have a multi-panel commission in place before the elections are announced. I think it's going to be announced any time later this week.
What are your views on this, Shemin?
Government knew about the retirement of Anup Chandra Pande much before. Then came this surprise resignation of Arun Goyal. So the government didn't move fast enough to appoint a second commissioner in place of Anup Chandra Pande. That is surprising, because the government knew about upcoming elections. So these kind of questions are being raised from the opposition quarters also.
Maybe the government thought that we could run it with one chief election commissioner and an election commissioner, and when Goyal resigned, it actually got the crisis.
It escalated, but at the end of the day, I mean, technically, if one were to look at it, even the chief election commissioner can conduct the elections.
Yeah.
So, but as I said, if you're holding elections, I mean, you claim that India is the biggest democracy in the world, and you have a multi-member commission. So it's important, I think, to have the entire full panel in place.
Interestingly, tomorrow the Supreme Court takes up a petition which is challenging the appointment of election commissioners. Do you think tomorrow's hearing or the developments in the court will have a bearing on today's decision?
I'm not very sure that in the first hearing itself, what would happen. There is a law of parliament, an amended law of parliament, which has been challenged in the court. Then I think there is a due process. You give notice to the parties who have been named in that petition. So it's important, but whether it will have a bearing or not, it's difficult to say at this point.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you, Shemin, for sharing your information on this. For the latest development on these two stories, stay tuned to our website, deccanherald.com.